Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Contour Community Meeting. Today is March 10th, 2020, and we're going to talk about what we have been working on within the Contour project, and talk about the future. So with that, I'm going to share the HackMD that we use for meeting notes. If you have anything that you would like to add in it, please do so. If you have any discussion topics or anything you want to talk about, please add those in there. And I'm going to share my screen as well so you can see what we are talking about here. All right. Steve, I know you're going to be talking a lot during this meeting, so I'm going to hand it over to you.
Sure. So everyone, thanks for coming. Hopefully this new time works for other folks. So the first thing on here is this end-to-end testing suite. Unfortunately, James isn't here. I think he's asleep right now over in Australia. So there's a new testing suite that James has been working on, which is pretty cool. So whenever a new version of Envoy comes out, or if we want to validate what extensions maybe Contour needs or doesn't need in that Envoy build, it's difficult to do that today, right? So we end up spinning up a cluster and just running things by hand, which isn't very scientific. So we want to do this in a better way. So this is sort of just a, hey, here's things that we've been working on that you can't really see. So James has this coming, and this will be pretty cool, I think, once we get this up and running. I think it's using the Rego suite to be the testing language to write in. So that should be cool. The second thing here is, so I'm working on this idea of, we have some things with the knative folks as well as other users that have reported this. And basically, if you have multiple upstreams, say in an HTTP proxy, one issue had is the health checks. So if you have, say, two different services that you're sending traffic to, and say you have active health checks on them, on Envoy, and say one of the upstreams goes away completely, it just gets totally destroyed. Envoy will detect that there's no healthy endpoints in there, and it removes them all from the cluster in Envoy. But the problem is that Envoy will still route traffic to that cluster, right? Which doesn't make any sense. So I've chatted with the folks upstream, and that's just kind of how it works today. So we're looking at one way around solving that. The second problem we had was some knative folks. They want to use Contour as the ingress controller for knative. And in their testing suite, they have an issue in the similar vein where they switch traffic from A to B, and they get a blip of downtime. So we're looking at solving that. So one way I'm looking at solving this is, instead of having two different clusters in Envoy, so we have CDS in Envoy, and today Contour will match a service in Kubernetes to a cluster in Envoy. And then when you switch that configuration in your proxy or ingress object, whatever one you're using, Contour will send that change down to Envoy, and then Envoy will consume that, and then the change will happen. The problem is it can happen. There's a timing issue of when all that information can get passed down to Envoy. So one thing I'm looking at solving this is instead of having multiple clusters per service, having a cluster per route. And then what we can do is then just swap the endpoints inside that one cluster. So hopefully this might solve both of these different issues here. Again, just something that's kind of happening, that there's some issues open on it, but other than that, you wouldn't know that these are happening. Any questions out there on any of this?
Can you link to some of the issues there in the notes as well later?
Yeah, I can do that, sure.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah. The third one here is some stuff I've done on, so we've looked at doing rate limiting here in Contour for a while. There's been a PR open for, I think, a year and a half now or so. It sort of fell off our radar a little bit when we went to all the new proxy security and that sort of thing. So the Lyft team wrote this rate limiting service. So if you want to actually do rate limiting in Envoy, this is what the Lyft team uses. How this gets set up in terms of how Envoy configures any kind of service is, you set up your service, and you have a gRPC connection that talks from Envoy to this external service. And then when request comes in, when you configured it, Envoy will then pass that request off to this backend service and say, hey, basically thumbs up or thumbs down. So this is Lyft's implementation of their rate limiting service. It was in the Lyft organization. We recently just moved it to the Envoy proxy org. And then I just bumped it up to using Go modules and stuff. So that's all up to date now. And so next thing I want to do is make this have a public Docker image. So once we have that, then we'll be able to actually reference it from Contour. So again, nothing really Contour specific, but just helping in the upstream community that eventually will help out the Contour community as well.
Question here, Steve. So the request per unit, is that how is that calculated, or rather, what is that?
So I think in this is how you configure their service. So you see how it has the unit is second. So this is, I think, setting up a setting of 500 seconds is their limit. So okay. it'll yeah. So you can make that minutes or hours or whatever, and then you can kind of combine these things together. So you can pick apart the request and stuff and have it look at. I think this one's, yeah. If you go up a little bit there, Jonas, there's yeah, right there in the middle here. This one, it has like a key and a value, and there's different ways that you can have the rate limiting service react to how the requests are coming across. You know, does it have a specific header in the request, or have certain things on it? So
that's really smart.
Yeah, so we can do once we. So again, I have a design proposal to update from the original one, because the original one was built again against ingress route. So I think Nick and I and James are all looking at that. Once we have that done, then it's a matter of just plugging in the bits and pieces to make this functional. So yeah, so this doesn't require that we have to use this implementation. That's the kind of the cool part about Envoy. You just have to fulfill the contract on the other end of the gRPC connection that Envoy will get configured to. But this one is one that Lyft uses in production, and I think it's probably fine. But if you had your own, you could build your own. This does use a Redis database, so that may or may not excite or scare folks depending on how you feel about managing a Redis database or Redis cache. So, but that could be cool. Again, once we get there, again, just showing some things that we've done upstream that will help us. The next place is, I know we've talked about this before, and I don't think we've really done a whole lot yet, but if folks are looking to get help, contribute back and do some things, this is one of our kind of sore spots we feel that we could make better. So this is our HTTP proxy CRD reference, and it goes through all the different features and functionality of how this proxy works and the different, things on that resource. But it's one big giant page. And sometimes it's hard to not everything has a link to it, which is difficult to show people hey, I want to look at this section, and we have to say, oh, well, search for this or search for that. This is the place that, I guess we can break apart some different issues. And then if folks are looking to contribute, this is a great place if you'd like to do some docs work, just throwing some things out there.
Yeah, this is an enormous document and definitely needs to be separated out or at least properly linked. So yeah, that's an awesome call out.
And Tim, you had a question, I think, about the cluster per route idea.
Yeah, so this is all about making changes appear more atomically, essentially, right? So we don't drop traffic. How does it interact with the listener-based memory leak that we've also been working on lately? Does it make it worse? Does it make it better? Is it orthogonal?
I don't think it should really change it, because so basically, like I said, today when we have a service in Kubernetes, we mirror that with a service or a cluster in Envoy. So a Kubernetes service to a cluster in Envoy. What we're looking to doing now is having a route in Envoy match a cluster in, a route in Kubernetes or in your ingress resource mapping to a cluster in Envoy. So basically, then what you'll have is when you have multiple upstreams, you'll just have a set of endpoints in EDS, which is the endpoint system in Envoy. So you have a cluster like in Kubernetes, which matches a service, and you have endpoints which make up that cluster. So ideally, this is not going to affect that memory issue because we're only going to be swapping endpoints in and out of EDS.
If I think about Envoy's graph, listener is at a higher level, so the number won't change. Correct? And only change when certificate information or FQDNs or ports or some such change, correct?
Correct. Yeah, because the certs and all those are tied to the listener filter chain. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks.
Cool. Yeah. So docs are a good place again if you're looking for things to do. There's outside of things as well. If folks are like, hey, I want to work on something but I don't know where to start, we could probably go find some things too. If something code would be interesting as well. It's always fun to have folks, contribute things back. So, but don't be scared. I guess we're here to help. If you're interested, I'm happy to help find some things.
Do we have a good first issue for this specific thing?
I don't know. We might.
If we
If
don't,
you go to the top, I think we have a link to that at the top of this page.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, or maybe it's not good first issue. Some docs things.
Don't think that's in there, so we can create one.
Yeah, we'll get that fixed up for you.
Awesome. All right. Any questions, comments regarding this? All right. Let's go through your proposal here, Steve.
So this isn't really my proposal. This is so we've done some talking about Gimbal. So if folks aren't familiar with Gimbal, Gimbal is kind of like a set of discoverers that go and look for endpoints in an upstream cluster. So today Contour can route, to endpoints within a single cluster. What Gimbal does is lets you route to endpoints across multiple clusters. So how it works today is you can route to Kubernetes clusters, you can route to OpenStack clusters, and I have to finish the PR. You can route to vSphere clusters as well, or VMs running on vSphere clusters. So the idea is that you replace like a load balancer with a Kubernetes cluster, and that cluster then acts as like a load balancer on your network. So you have it go discover all the endpoints that exist in these different upstream clusters. And you can configure routing to send traffic to different clusters. So you could do, blue-green deployments from cluster A to cluster B, or failover traffic from one cluster to another, or just simply maybe add in endpoints that maybe never be containerized. Like I used to work at a large healthcare place, and there are some applications that just will never come off of a VM or never come off of where they live today, right? They'll just always be there. So Gimbal gives you the ability to route to that. The one limitation, though, of Gimbal today is that all those endpoints need to be routable. So in the case of Kubernetes, that upstream cluster has to have a routable endpoint for every pod, right? And there's ways to do this. I know Calico has a BGP method. AWS, their CNI will give you a routable pod IP. But there's some drawbacks to doing that, right? There's expensive now. You've got to deal with all these different IP sets in your bigger network architecture. And not everyone does it. So we're looking at some ways to maybe have the idea of Gimbal work, but not have to have that limitation or that requirement of these routable IP addresses. So in some of the work that I was looking at doing, I found this from the SIG multi-cluster teams, and they have some ideas that are similar as well, that are just interesting to read through if you're all interested. So I haven't fully finished all of this, but the idea is they have a couple CRDs that they're building, which act as meta endpoints that tell you when you want to expose certain things to this multi-cluster idea. And then once they have it exposed, then they can use those CRDs to then tie things together the way that Gimbal wants to do it, sort of. So I just thought it was interesting. If folks haven't seen it, just kind of fits into the Gimbal mindset. And then once I come up, if I guess where we are with that is if this looks like a good place, then we'll definitely try and contribute back to that. Or if there's some design ideas that we can help with that, then I'm going to help with there. Otherwise, might have a new design that we implement to help.
I mean, we talked the other day a little bit on this, Steve, right? So definitely, this is important for us. I think the general idea of what we're trying to accomplish here jives with that community document. So definitely, there's a level of interest here. So I'll let you kind of guide us from the technical standpoint of what the best solution is for Contour and Gimbal, and we can start working towards that.
Yeah, for sure. So if anyone's interested in that, happy to chat about that. Or if you have some ideas, then go contribute to that doc or let us know, what your needs might be or what they might influence those pieces.
So would this, so this is meant to be a common API across the Kubernetes ecosystem. Would this then live inside the Kubernetes org, or as a separate repository, like a Gimbal repository?
So this one, I think this specifically is with the SIG multi-cluster. So it would live in a SIG org, much like the service APIs live in a, it's like github.com/kubernetes-sig/ whatever it's called.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's not owned by a company or anything. This is just the Kubernetes itself, SIG ecosystem. Okay. They do have some things now. There's like Federation v1 and there's Federation v2, I think. And then there's some other projects that make up this SIG multi-cluster kind of SIG.
So is the plan here to take some of the things that we've done for Gimbal and apply it here, or apply the things here onto Gimbal?
Yeah, that's the question, I guess. Yeah. So yeah. So are the ideas that here, like, would this fit Gimbal, and should, like, Gimbal go away and this become what Gimbal is in a sense? Mm-hmm. Or are there things that we can pull from this to then help Gimbal's story out? Because this I haven't read through it fully all the way. I know before this SIG was looking at making a lot of the applications be deployable across clusters, not so much routing them together. Where Gimbal was more of like, let's connect the things together, the endpoints. So we'll have to see what this ends up being. This is the proposal. I know there are some links into the service API work as well that they're doing. So there's some commonalities in there that we can leverage for this as well, I think. So
I think from my viewpoint, one of the the two main scenarios that this enables is, the first one is obviously being able to route pods and communicate across clusters. So if you have a service that's split across multiple clusters, either for DR or for data locality or for any other reason, that's a super priority zero scenario. The other priority zero scenario, and I think that's going to unfold over the next X amount of months, years, is the fact that there's going to be a whole cluster of hybrid services. There's this app modernization that's happening on existing apps, and some of them are on VMs today, some of them are on bare metal, and eventually some of those are not going to be able to come to containers. So whether that's vSphere clusters or Hyper-V clusters or even bare metal or apps that are running in VMs in public cloud providers, they're going to need to be part of a bigger set of applications that need to communicate with it. And I think the cluster model and the Gimbal model and how you demonstrated last time at KubeCon, Steve, it has a lot of value because it's allowing you to have routable services no matter where they're deployed. And I think that's a priority zero, priority one scenario as well. And more companies are going to encounter that because they're going to realize that you can't modernize everything. You can't put everything in a container.
Yep, sure. Also, just with the idea of having lots of small clusters living out in the world, the more of those you have, the more complexity you have in terms of getting traffic to them. So it can be a good place there as well to help manage that problem of having lots of clusters.
Absolutely.
Cool. Any other questions, comments on the proposal here? All right. Then we're going to dive into Taro. You've been doing some work here.
Sorry, I was not hearing, but I suppose it was my turn.
Yeah, no worries. Do you want to talk about the work you've been doing?
Yeah. So firstly, I've been working with this PR for client certificate authentication for the external client, and this is progressing. I have review comments. This is now going to second round of reviews, and James has been providing good feedback for me. So there's no blockers at this point. And yeah, this is really about having external client presenting a client certificate for envoy when connecting to envoy, and envoy then validates the client certificate according to given CA certificate, and this changes the HTTP proxy a bit. There will be a new field for providing the client certificate or reference to a secret with a not client certificate with a CA certificate, so secret with a CA certificate, and HTTP proxy can then point to that, and that enables the validation. That's basically it.
Cool. And I see James has provided a bunch of comments here in the past few hours.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm working now with a new update to this, and I think we are on the track. So there is no big obstacles here.
Yeah, and Tara, thank you so much for this. So I know we discussed this briefly last night. So I know that both Nick as well as David are going to take a look as well and talk to James about this.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, it's good if I get more feedback even. So
yeah, and as soon as you complete this one, I know what your next task is. So that's the other one, right? The client authentication, client certificate between envoy and upstream. So I know that's important to you. So, but let's get this one through, and then we can start looking into the other couple of issues and PRs that you're looking into.
Yeah, absolutely. I was experimenting with this one today. This is a trial. I was this is related to the certificate rotation for the XDS connection, for the gRPC connection, and we now have the hot reloading in Contour, and the hot reloading of certificate in Envoy is a PR that I'm lacking a reviewer currently there. So there is a PR in Envoy also for hot reloading certificate when it's rotated for the XDS connection. But yeah, I try to ping the guys there to get a reviewer there. But anyway, I built a private version of Envoy, and this is a trial for that. So I have modified also I have not posted that PR yet, but I modified also the bootstrap configuration generation for Contour, so that it will generate the suitable bootstrap config for Envoy, which enables the certificate reloading, hot reloading. And then I created this, now what you are seeing here, I just made a short trial by creating a couple of these CRDs or CRs for certificate manager, so that it will create a CA within the certificate manager itself. That is here 10 years, and then this second part here, it creates two certificates, one for Contour and one for Envoy, and these are then issued by certificate manager and stored in secrets. And then I had a trial. I did this customize YAML, which is up there, where I modified the example deployment manifest that we have in Contour repository in examples render, and I modified so that it mounts only the Contour cert and Envoy cert secrets, and there is no separate CA secret anymore, because the CA certificate is stored by certificate manager in the same secret. So I deleted those extra mounts with this customize YAML patch, and modified the startup parameters for Contour and Envoy, so that it picks up those yeah, exactly there. So it picks up the CA certificate now in the same /search path, because there is only the single mount point anymore. And this seemed to work with this private version of Envoy that I built. So I can have a certificate manager then rotate the reissue and rotate the certificates automatically as fast as I want, and both Contour and Envoy will pick up the certificates, and I'm able to see that in Wireshark that they if I trigger a new connection establishment for XDS connection, they will use the new certificates after rotation. That was just a trial today. I was wondering, maybe this could be something that could be made as a blog post or something when there is more like text around this. That or yeah, I don't know what you feel. How would it be good to tell people how to use certificate manager for managing this XDS certificate?
So I think that once you complete this work, it'd be great to actually put it in the official documentations of Contour. I think that's the right place. So maybe drafting, creating a PR against the website under docs and talking about, the principles of, what's the best practice here and how to do this will be a great value.
Yeah, right.
But I think a blog post is a great idea as well to announce that this is new. What Michael just said about the official documentation is totally valid also, but letting everyone know in case they missed the release notes.
I think that should go in the blog post of the release, right? So it's going to be important function of the release. So unless you're thinking of a separate blog posting.
Yeah, I have no opinion in that way. That whatever is best for getting this information through is okay for me.
I think having a separate small blog post about this with an example, I think that would be very useful. Definitely. Well, as well as in the docs and the release notes and everything, but having this as a small blog post like the other smaller demo blog posts we've done before, I think that would be really useful.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I think that's it for my part here. I also added a second or third bullet in the other business, but let's go through first the others.
All right, thank you, Tero. Steve.
Am I up? Yeah. Oh, yeah. So I forgot about this. So yeah, Thursday we talked about this before, but I'm going to be on the Bret Fisher show at 1 p.m. Eastern. So if y'all want to put me on the spot and ask me crazy questions, let's do it. It's live. It's a live YouTube show, so it'll be fun. So just throwing it out there in case you want to hear more about Contour.
Yeah, we'll be there to support you and cheer you on. It's going to be super fun.
It'll be
fun. Yeah, this is awesome. I'll make sure that that's communicated out through social media and Slack as well, of course. On my end, so of course during this weekend we had some daylight savings time savings. Yeah, I'm a little confused. We had some time zone changes, and we need to fix that for the community meeting page. So I'm gonna figure out the ones that we have there, and I'll try to get that fixed later today. All right, Tero, you're up.
Jonas, sorry, you asked about the daylight savings time in Slack earlier. It's April 5th is when Australian Eastern shifts backward, 1 hour back. So we just, I'm sorry, yeah, when they shift an hour back. Is that right? No, they shift an hour forward. Sorry, they moved to daylight savings time. We moved off of daylight savings time. So
yeah, Okay. So yeah, can I have that in writing because my brain is a little mush right now.
Yeah, I'll write it, but it's April 5th, so it's not quite another month.
Okay. So we need to fix it now, and then we'll fix it in a month as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Good. All right, Tero. Let's talk about your potential new feature.
I have some problems with my audio. Hope you are hearing me well.
Yeah, we hear you just fine.
Yeah. Okay. So this is about the potential feature related to the secure connection towards the backend service from Envoy. And I was quickly drawing a picture here just before the meeting. So here the backend connection between Envoy and upstream server. It is possible, of course, it's possible to secure that with TLS, but only the server is authenticated. And now, after we introduce this support for external client validation, the PR that we took a look a moment ago, it would make sense in our opinion to introduce a new feature then to authenticate also this internal leg of the TLS connection. So this red connection or the TLS connection with the red box around. So when the external client is connecting to Envoy, we are sure then that it is authenticated, it is the authorized client, and both ends of this green external leg of the TLS connection is authenticated. But then when we are inside the Kubernetes cluster, we do not authenticate the client currently. And it is then possible if we are sharing the cluster with other applications, or if there is, for example, a vulnerability within some software running within the cluster, it is then possible for unauthorized client to connect to the upstream server. And since there is no client authentication currently, there is no means to secure this. So this would be then secured by having a client certificate configured to Envoy, and then it's up to upstream server to authenticate the client and only accept HTTP connections from authenticated clients.
Yeah, we can validate the CA with the subject alt name now, but I think you want more than that, right? You want the actual certificate as well.
This in theory that is okay. So I mean we have the ability to authenticate the server. When Envoy connects, it can validate the upstream server certificate. But I don't see it possible to add a client certificate for Envoy currently.
Right, correct, yeah.
So it basically, the feature would be a mechanism for the user to add a client certificate for Envoy for this internal leg of the TLS connection. But yeah, I think that this would be something we discussed about this a little yesterday, and it's something that would need obviously a design document which I can prepare to flesh out the ideas a bit, and we can then discuss it further.
So just a question for me to understand, is this more of an Envoy feature than a Contour feature?
Yeah, in a way, yes. Of course, we would then need a means for configuring this, and it would need to be exposed some way within Contour to make it possible to point out a secret with a TLS certificate and key.
Gotcha. So,
Yep.
Steve, what would you recommend as the next step for this?
Yeah, I think if there's not an issue for this, or it'd be good to open this up to have the placeholder for that. Yeah, and then after that would be a design doc to figure out how it would look and feel. Because you're going to have, I mean, how many client certs are there? And is there one per actual like user, or is it per? Yeah.
That is of course also something that can be discussed, but in my case we only have single client certificate for Envoy.
Okay. I wasn't sure if there were. Yeah, I don't need numbers or anything. Just if there were a bunch of them, like say I had 100 different clients, do I have to then manage a lot of secret or certificates in Envoy?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It would become much more difficult to configure also if you would need to have a separate client certificate per each upstream, for example.
Yeah, and I know that PR for Envoy reloading hasn't happened yet either, unless it's a different. I guess we could do it a different way. Never mind. That's out of scope. Never mind.
Yeah, exactly. This is anyway coming. Would be coming in the dynamic configuration, so it is supported already.
Yeah, you're right. So, so I think an issue just to describe the overall, problem, what you want to solve. This is excellent. So thank you for putting this together. Even this picture would be great to put in the issue. And then then we can talk about a design doc and figure out how to best make this all work and fit.
Yeah, sure. I will do that. Thanks.
Very cool.
Awesome. Thank you, Tero. Anything else anyone wants to add before we wrap up the meeting? All right. So again, thank you all for joining the first meeting in the Americas time zone here for Contour. This has been a blast. Really interesting discussions here. So thank you all for joining. And we hope to see you next week or the week after that. We're gonna, as we talked about in the community meeting last week, we're gonna run community meetings in the Australia time zone on the 1st and 3rd Tuesday of every month, and we'll run them in the Americas time zone on every 2nd and 4th Tuesday of the month. And as I said before, we'll make sure that that's updated on the community page shortly here. And with that, thank you all for joining, and have a fantastic rest of your week.
Yeah, take care.
Well, you guys just finished? I came back. My other meeting was done. All right, bye everybody.
Bye everyone.
Bye-bye.